Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Nothing But Locks podcast. I'm your host, Ali Melnicki, accompanied by Jacob Schrader. How you doing today, Jacob?
I'm doing good. I'm excited to talk about free agency and the impact it'll have on fantasy for next year. I think we've had a pretty active free agency
Yeah, to
this
say
year.
the least. It's been one of the more active ones I've seen in a while. Maybe not as many trades as last year when you saw Russell Wilson switch teams and Matt Ryan, a few other big names, but you did get some big names switching teams. Obviously, I'm a New York Giants fan. I'm very happy to see Darren Waller over in the New York Giants uniform. Stephen Gilmore got traded. He's going over to Dallas, so I think that is going to help their defense out a lot. You also had guys like Shaq Mason of the Bucks get traded, Jonnu Smith, Jalen Moranzi was probably the other big name out there going to the Dolphins. But I think let's start, Jacob. The biggest trade happened last week, and that is the Bears and the Panthers swapped the number one pick. So it sounds like the Panthers are going to have the number one pick. It looks like they're going to draft CJ Stroud out of Ohio State, or they still might go to Bryce Young out of Alabama. Do you look at fantasy wise? Do you see any of the prospects coming out of college as a fantasy eligible guy to draft this coming year?
So I don't. I will never take a rookie, right? What's
Right.
the last rookie that had a real fantasy impact? I mean,
Ooh,
last year, I think Bryce Hall would have been it, right? Bryce Hall was actually on pace to be a beast, but there's always something that comes up, right? All the receivers in this year. I mean, yeah, Garrett Wilson of the Jets, he ended the season
I
really
mean, I
well.
guess you could make the argument Jamar Chase as a rookie was just
Oh, okay.
phenomenal.
Yeah, that's true. But there's so many guys who are hyped up, and then they get in the NFL and there's injuries, right? I
Right.
remember watching Amir Abdullah on the Lions, and he was good. I mean, Amir Abdullah is not a bad player, but you basically saw Amir Abdullah, and he used to do something where he would be running, and then this happened all the time. He would just start tripping, and what it was his legs just couldn't handle the speed he was trying to run at. It was literally like he could not keep up with the NFL game. It
Right.
used to happen all the time. He just used to fall straightforward. And you just don't know. Amir Abdullah came into the NFL as a quick guy, as a fast guy from Nebraska, like unbelievable rushing records, but he just couldn't handle it. And you never know when that's going to be the case. So I'm not taking Stroud if he's on the Panthers. I think they just got the Eagles running back. To me, that's
Panthers,
the
yeah.
most exciting news for the Panthers.
Yeah, and the Panthers. Listen, that was the worst division in all of football last year. The Bucks made it. They had a 7-9 record. It was Tom Brady's first losing career. Let's stay in that division right now because last year a lot of guys were big on Baker Mayfield when he went to the Panthers, and he was terrible. He did go to the Rams. He had one or two nice games there, but otherwise nothing really special. Now Baker's on the Buccaneers. And you have a lot of changes in that division. Not only is Baker on the Bucks, Panthers obviously they're going to draft someone, and I think they did. They signed Andy Dalton as a backup, so he might make a start or two. But then you also have on the New Orleans Saints, Derek Carr now is going to them.
Yeah.
What, in your opinion, and I mean, I could bring up the Falcons. They still have Desmond Ritter going in the second year. But is any of these new guys between Carr, between Baker, are any of them maybe fantasy relevant coming up?
So I would never say Baker is fantasy relevant. I got to say he does have a pretty good offense in Tampa, right? He's got two wide receiver ones in
Right.
Godwin and Evans. Um, it boosts their stock a reasonable amount. But the thing about Baker is always weird, right? Baker always throws to like the third target. It's like Baker never just runs a traditional offense. So it worries me a little bit. I mean, Baker, yeah, he played well in the Rams, but I mean, he was pretty bad for a lot of the season. Baker, it just worries me. One thing about quarterbacks when I see it is if they're cupping the ball a lot, right? The
Mhm.
great NFL throwers, they hold the ball in one hand and they don't need to basically pad their throw, right? You see Jameis Winston do it. He pads his throw. But guys like Aaron Rodgers, like Tom Brady, Josh Allen, especially, like they're running around with the ball in one hand and then they throw it immediately. And I think that's a slept on but big thing for quarterbacks. You need to be able to hold the ball in one hand and throw it.
Yeah.
They make a huge deal out of hand size. And I think the gloves actually help with that. I actually played football in high school and I could not catch a pass without gloves. And I was like sticky fingers with gloves. That's
Yeah.
kind of the gloves make a difference. I'm not taking Baker as a quarterback. I don't know. The one I can say is I think the Saints are going to be pretty good. I think Derek Carr was treated poorly
Right.
in
And
on the
he
Raiders.
could still throw. He'll get you yards. And he goes into a friendly dome. He gets to play in. And again, that division's not great. But he also has another guy besides Michael Thomas. Obviously, you have Chris Olave. But the Saints made a splash yesterday signing Jamal Williams to a deal. I love this deal, getting Jamal Williams. We've seen Alvin Kamara regress in recent years, especially last year. He just did not show up the whole season. So what do you think Jamal Williams' impact is, not only on the team but on on his fantasy value as well?
Yeah, so my gut reaction to this was actually Kamara up, all things considered, right? I think last year with Jameis, Jameis isn't a guy who can get the ball. He doesn't get the ball out to his running backs, but Carr is, right? Last year on the Raiders, Josh Jacobs, he had the season of his career. Part of that is Carr's ability to get him the ball on broken plays. I mean, Carr's a good quarterback. I mean, he's not a great quarterback, but he's every bit of a B plus quarterback in my eyes. I think it boosts everybody's stock. I think Michael Thomas is a guy who everyone is sleeping on. He basically
Yeah,
has
I agree.
gone from the top receiver in the NFL to complete irrelevancy because of injuries, I think.
Yeah.
Um, Olave is good. They have, Shaheed, I believe his name is, who is good. I'm taking the Saints, and I believe they have an okay defense, right?
Yeah. Well, let's go to the team that let go of Derek Carr, and that's the Oakland Raiders. They made a lot of buzz, not only on the defensive end, but obviously on the offensive end. They signed Jacoby Myers, traded Darren Waller, as I mentioned at the top of the episode. But the biggest thing is they got their new quarterback, signing Jimmy Garoppolo to a 3-year deal. Let's start with the quarterback situation. Was this a good deal for the Raiders signing Jimmy G?
I mean, I don't really see how it's an incredible upgrade over Carr.
True.
Um, I would say to me they're pretty similar. I think Jimmy G is less of a mistake maker, although I think 49ers fans, vehemently disagree with that. I like Garoppolo. I always thought he got hate kind of for the wrong reason. I mean, he's brought San Francisco
Yeah.
winning seasons and consistent play for a while. I know they haven't had the ultimate result of winning a Super Bowl um, with him, or maybe they have. Have they?
They no, they got to the Super Bowl and they lost to Kansas City, but they
Yeah.
did go to, I believe, back-to-back AFC championships with Jimmy G.
Yeah. I like Jimmy G. I mean, I think this is a huge season for Devontae Adams. I think the other guy it's actually really good for is Hunter Renfrow.
Yeah.
Right? Hunter Renfrow
Yeah.
basically disappeared last year, but Hunter Renfrow should be an 80 catch season guy. He is like Golden Tate. He's one of those guys who just gets open. I like him a lot because I don't think Jimmy G's like, throw it deep kind of guy. He's more of a game manager. He's more about efficient throws. So I think Devontae Adams gets a boost because Waller's gone, but the overall winner is Hunter Renfrow.
Let's go. Let's stay in the AFC West, because obviously the Broncos were a terrible team last year, surprised everyone. They did sign some nice guys to their offensive line, but that's been about the only thing they've done besides hire Sean Payton. Do you think that Sean Payton resurrects Russell Wilson's career?
I saw some interesting headlines. It was something like, Russell Wilson has a dedicated team of quarterback coaches in the building who are not affiliated with the Broncos. And he just said that has to end. Right. I think Russell Wilson, I mean, I think he views himself in a crazy highlight, and that's not the worst thing for a quarterback to do, but I think he needs more of a team mentality.
Yeah.
Um, I do think Sean Payton will help out with the Denver Broncos. The one thing I can say about the Broncos is I think Javonte Williams should be drafted just as high as he was last year.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know why he is considerably lower on draft boards than he was last year, and he has no competition now. Unless the Broncos sign somebody I don't know about or are planning on signing somebody, they're going to run the ball. Right. That is every Russell Wilson offense ever has had a lethal rushing attack, and they now have a Javonte Williams isn't bad, and he caught a shit ton of passes when he was healthy and Russell was, in the first 3 weeks of the season or so when he was healthy. I think Javonte Williams has a huge season. I don't care how the Denver Broncos do. I think they're in a tough division, right? They got a lot of good teams. I don't know if they even make the playoffs, but they got a great defense. They got a running back. They're gonna pound the running game.
Well, what do you think? Because Williams is coming back from a bad injury. I think he only played in 2 games last year. They're going to need to sign a veteran to back him up. Melvin Gordon was not the answer last year. He had a terrible, terrible run, got released by the Broncos. There's still a few running backs out there, Jacob, that I'm surprised haven't been signed. We just saw the Dallas Cowboys release Zeke yesterday. Leonard Fournette got released last week, I believe, by the Bucks. Do you think any of those two guys the Broncos should target?
Yeah, I mean it's certainly a reasonable point. The thing is like the running back market is so dead, it's ridiculous. You know, the Eagles back, Miles Sanders, he got 4 years, 25 million, and that's like the top contract a running back's going to get this year, right? The league just isn't paying running backs. They see them as interchangeable players, and I don't necessarily know if they're wrong, right? What matters is how well you block.
Right.
Um, so I think maybe they'll sign somebody. I don't know though. I don't know if a guy like Leonard Fournette, I don't know what kind of contract he's going to get. I would guess Leonard Fournette's going to get a similar contract to what Jamal Williams got. 4 million a year sounds about right to me.
Let's go from the running backs and go back to wide receivers. So Jacoby Myers was kind of the prize wide receiver. He signed with the Raiders. New England responded by signing Juju Smith-Schuster to pretty much the same exact contract. I think 11 million over 3 years, which I don't think Juju is definitely worth $11 million. I actually would take Jacoby Myers over him. But the other big signing was the Jets ridiculously overpaying $44 million for Alan Lazard, who I rank as a B minus receiver. Obviously, they did this knowing that Aaron Rodgers is probably going to come to them. Do you think the Jets are just this year's Denver Broncos, that they're making a splash with a quarterback that's past his prime? They're getting him all the tools he wants, and they're just going to totally be a disaster area.
No, I don't. I mean, it is. It is the same sand trap that I think a lot of bettors may fall into, and who knows in the end. But I mean, the Jets were almost a playoff team last year with probably the worst quarterback play in the NFL. Right? They're now getting a guy who, on his worst day, is like the 10th best quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, this is still Aaron Rodgers. This is still like, I see the Jets being better than the Broncos were, just from like a imaginary world before the season starts, before you put it all together. I mean, the pieces that this team has, they have a wide receiver 1, they have a wide receiver 2, they have a solid just core team, they got a great defense, and now they got a great quarterback. I would be terrified to play the Jets. The Jets defense is like crazy
more because of their defense. I think the Jets, I don't know what Aaron Rodgers does to them, because we only know him in Green Bay. I know he's reuniting with Nathaniel Hackett, his old offensive coordinator, who was a disaster for the said Broncos. But I don't know that this moves the needle for them. I just don't. I don't know how I don't worry about Aaron Rodgers playing in cold weather. He played in Green Bay. But we see Aaron Rodgers as not a big media guy. He kind of avoids interviews. He really only goes on the Pat McAfee show. So do you think the whole thing of playing in New York and being around media, that you're in New York, I grew up in New Jersey, is like literally on you 24/7? Do you think that has any negative effect on him?
I think it could, right? He is kind of
he's a recluse. He likes to, he was just on a darkness retreat, whatever that means.
Yeah. I literally watched the YouTube video of the actual darkness retreat. It's great. It's just a room that is pitch dark. It's cool. It's in Oregon, I think, and it's the only place in the US that offers a darkness. It's like an underground layer. It's crazy. I think there's a chance, but this is Aaron Rodgers. This he's been forged by the NFL. He's played in the Super Bowl. He's won a Super Bowl. I actually see the Jets as being spectacular this year. If the Jets get Aaron Rodgers, right? Aaron Rodgers is basically a guy who does not turn the ball over. And the reason the Jets lost games last year is because they just turn the ball over like crazy. They can rely on Breece Hall. They can do everything to not even put pressure on Aaron Rodgers, and he's gonna make the basic throws. I cannot see a world where the Jets have a losing record if they sign Aaron Rodgers. And I know a lot of people have said the same thing about the Broncos. I was probably thinking the same thing, but the Jets have a better team than the Broncos do besides their quarterback,
I mean,
right?
it's very similar though. The Broncos had an elite defense entering last year. They had some really nice young receivers, Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, and then they had some running backs that had injury issues, and look what happened. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. No, it is. It is like a carbon copy of what happened last year with the Broncos. I just believe more in Aaron Rodgers than I do in Russell Wilson. I believe,
Fair.
Garrett Wilson is a beast, right? Garrett Wilson is like straight up nice. Like he makes he makes those catches where he makes the catch and then he keeps making football moves. That's an elite wide receiver. When you catch the ball in traffic and you can dodge a player in a split second, right? That's what you saw with Odell Beckham, why he exploded and turned into a superstar, right? Jamar Chase, right? His rookie year, he had that play where he caught a slant route and just did a little spin and then he was in the freeway. I see Garrett Wilson. I mean, Garrett Wilson, I was looking at draft boards as a second round pick this year. I believe it. I'll buy it for him.
What about Aaron Rodgers? Where do you rank him among quarterbacks in fantasy?
So quarterbacks for me are tricky, right? I spend all my time thinking about other position players. Just to reiterate, I draft Matthew Stafford every year. This year is no exception. He will be my quarterback. For Aaron Rodgers, I see him.
You could probably wait till like the last round to get Matt Stafford.
Oh yeah, this year. Well, sometimes my league will take him. Like I remember
Just
one year,
to piss you off.
someone took him in the fourth round, and I
No.
fleeced this kid. I traded him Leonard Fournette for Stafford, and
No.
because I obviously had a stacked team, so I could trade that my fourth round pick, and Fournette got hurt or something. So, I see Aaron Rodgers having like 2 picks this year, right? I don't know of how many touchdowns he's going to throw, but I see him playing. I see the Jets playing safe football, right? They're going to run the ball more than they ever had. I mean, I think the real winner here is Breece Hall. I think Breece Hall should be a first round pick. I don't know when he's coming back from ACL. I actually think Breece Hall has a little bit of a better situation than Wilson does.
Yeah, I agree.
And
I like
Breece
Breece Hall. I was big on Breece Hall last year. I thought he was going to be a sleeper. I think if he doesn't get hurt, I think he's a top 5 running back to finish the year. But you did bring up a name I want to talk about, and that's Odell Beckham Jr. He worked out last week for a bunch of teams. Where do you think he should sign, and where do you think would be the best place fantasy-wise for him?
So I think we're staying on the Jets. I think, I saw that was part of Aaron Rodgers' wish list, and his wish list was crazy. I mean, I didn't even know Mercedes Lewis was still in the NFL. That guy he's consistent. I'll give him that. But
he's old.
yeah, I mean, Odell, I drafted Odell last year in some leagues and kind of leagues where you keep players the whole year. And I drafted him again this year because he'll certainly play somewhere this year. Best case situation from a fantasy standpoint, it could be New York, but it could also be somewhere like the Giants also staying in New York. The Rams actually make sense. I think they're going to get rid of Robinson.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the Saints makes too much sense, but it could happen. That's his hometown.
What
I
about
really
the
think it's the
Cowboys?
Jets.
The Cowboys are the team that's been most connected to him. They need someone else for CeeDee Lamb. Do you think that Odell would do well on the Cowboys?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of coming full circle for him. That catch that made him into the most famous guy of all time was against the Cowboys. And going back to play with them. I mean, if the Cowboys get Odell, I mean, the Cowboys signing Stephon Gilmore is big. I mean, they now have 2 elite cornerbacks. They've got the D line. The problem with the Cowboys is they're not winning in the playoffs. Like
that's my next question. Does it even matter? Because I'm not big on Dak at all. And we just saw Dak lead the league in interceptions, and he missed 4 games. Like he missed 4 games, but he still led the league in interceptions. I don't know if I like Dak as much with Odell. I think that I could see them butting heads if Dak continues to be injury prone. Like I personally, I don't think Dak fits in a top 12 fantasy quarterback conversations. I think he's out of the top 12. What do you think?
Oh, I don't know about that. I mean, during the regular season, the Cowboys are so able to beat up on bad teams. It's like crazy. The Cowboys put up 50 points more than anybody else in recent years. I know not last year maybe, but it was just a weird year for Dak. He never really got going. Right. I see Dak as a similar guy to Jalen Hurts, right? Jalen Hurts is a hard-nosed, smart, competitive guy who knows how to get the best of his team. I like Dak a lot for his leadership and his mentality. Right? I think very highly of Dak. It's ringingly similar to the Derek Carr situation where he's kind of in that category of B plus A minus quarterbacks where people don't know, is it just the team that's propping him up? Is he really elite? It's kind of yet to be seen with Dak, but the Cowboys have so many pieces. It's hard for me to say Dak is not even like a top 5 guy in fantasy for quarterbacks, honestly.
That's
I like
tough.
that.
I mean, he doesn't get the rushing. Like, let's go to my boy Daniel Jones because he has that nice contract now, and maybe he doesn't throw a lot of touchdown passes, but he runs a lot. He rushes for them. And now with Darren Waller, he's going to have a top receiver. They're going to get some more receivers in the draft. Like, where would you rank Daniel Jones this year?
Yeah. I've been the opposite of Daniel Jones, and I know he had actually a great season last year, and his rushing totals always surprise me. Like it's just weird to me to see a 6'4" lanky guy who runs for like upwards of 80 yards in NFL games. Like I never saw that coming. I never saw that pick turning into fruition, and it is right. He got a big contract and he deserved it, right? If the Giants are giving him that deal, someone else would have given him that deal too, and it's an interesting case, right? It's now what his 3rd or 4th year. That's generally
it's his 5th year actually.
Okay. That's a why. I mean, the Giants really stuck with this guy, and he was bad early.
He had a great rookie campaign, and then he struggled his 2nd, 3rd, and 4th year. But the guy's he's on his 4th coach since coming, or 4th offensive coordinator since coming into the league, 3rd head coach. It's tough to remain consistent like that. And they always had a bad offensive line. They never really gave him a top receiver. I mean, Richie James was their best receiver last year.
Yeah, that is true.
So
He has
I give him a lot of credit. I think Daniel Jones is going to be a sleeper. And I'm not just saying that with my bias, but I think he's going to have a very, very good year.
I like him. I got to say, I like Daniel Jones.
Well, what about Justin Fields? Because everyone just rushed to pick up Justin Fields after he came out of nowhere and just had a 180-yard running day.
Yeah, it could have been more than that. I thought it was in the 2s.
I think you're right. He set the record.
Yeah, crazy.
But you rely on Justin Fields for what he does with his legs. And defenses last year just kind of let him run because they knew he couldn't throw.
Yeah.
Now they got they traded for DJ Moore. They got him from the Panthers in that blockbuster trade with the number 1 pick. They also got Chase Claypool, who they really didn't use at the trade deadline last year for the Steelers. Nope. So Justin Fields is going to be asked to pass more because I think defenses are going to figure him out. You saw what they did with Kyler Murray. You saw what they did with Lamar Jackson. They figure out how to stop these guys from running. And I don't think Justin Fields has close to the arm that Jalen Hurts does. So what do you think about Justin Fields' prospects for this year? Because he's going to be the first quarterback, probably, maybe not the first. He's going to be a top 3 quarterback off the board, probably after like a Josh Allen and Pat Mahomes. So where do you rank him?
It's weird. The Bears now have 3 receivers who are like good to great, right? B to B plus receivers. I don't like Claypool because he does all his weird TikTok stuff and he talks a little too much. DJ Moore, I'm not sold on. He's real fast, but it's like they have 3 receivers who are the same, right? They have 3 5'10" to 6'1" receivers who run sub 4.4s. And Justin Fields has a cannon, but he doesn't have an accurate cannon. It's like a weird offense for the Bears now. Like, what is their plan? They've got like the best running quarterback in the NFL. And I guess it helps to have wide receivers who can stretch the field. But one of the things about Cam Newton that was so important to him in his crazy season in Carolina is he had big receivers. He had Greg Olsen. He had I think his name is Kelvin Benjamin, who his one,
Yep.
I don't think Kelvin Benjamin ever really did much after that. But Cam had big guys, and the Bears just don't have that. Like, it's weird to me. I don't even know where to rank Justin Fields. I'm going to stay away from him, most likely.
Yeah.
It's just
That's
I don't know what.
how I am with Kyler Murray. Everyone was jumping on Kyler Murray, and I was like, the guy's going to start getting injured, and he has a terrible attitude.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't think Kyler, like, where do you think Kyler Murray is going to start the year injured? Where do you rank him?
So what happened to Kyler Murray?
So I believe it was either week 13 or 14, but he tore his ACL, so he's not going to be available for the beginning of the season.
Yeah, yeah, I remember. Now that you said that, I remember the play. It's sad. You know, and it's weird. He does have a bad mentality. Like he just gives off, crazy ego and not a team guy. And he's arguing with Devon, or he's arguing with, gosh, who's their number one receiver?
That would be Hopkins. Yeah.
Yeah, he's arguing with DeAndre Hopkins on the bench. The thing about him though is he's so explosive, and right when the Cardinals were like 9-0 to start the 2020 season or 2021, whatever it was, he was so good. I mean, it was like unstoppable because he can throw the ball. I mean, I've actually followed Kyler Murray since he was a baseball player, right, in high school. And I was watching these videos like, dude, this dude is not like a real person. Like he is so explosive. I think Kyler Murray is a guy you got to stick with, right? If you have him in a dynasty league, the talent is just too immense to give up. I mean, I think Kyler Murray could be an MVP one year. I think he has it in him. I just, this year.
I don't know. I'm on the other spectrum than you. I think Kyler, there's a reason why the Cardinals were exploring trading DeAndre Hopkins. I think Kyler is one of the big reasons Cliff Kingsbury got fired, which I didn't agree with the firing, but I'm just not a Kyler fan. I'm really not. And really, who else does he have to throw to? I mean, you still have Zach Ertz with the Eagles. I mean, not the Eagles, the Cardinals. But his receivers outside of Hopkins aren't that great, right?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, Zach Ertz is my guy last year. If you have a chance to draft Zach Ertz, and he's going to be underpriced like he is every year, draft Zach Ertz. He will get you 4 catches a game. He will be a consistent player. Zach Ertz is the easiest pick in fantasy football, this year included. At least how I see it.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I like Zach Ertz a lot. So, last thing before we get into some of the rapid fire round questions I want to ask you, but let's talk about Lamar Jackson. The Ravens obviously put the non-exclusive franchise tag on him. He's not happy about it. It looks like the sides are way off concerning a contract. So, let me ask you, do you think there is a team that is willing to give up 2 first-round picks and claim him off of the franchise tag? Because teams could match the Ravens offer and offer and get him for 2 first-round picks. So do you think there's a team that will do that, or do you think that he's going to be with the Ravens on week 1?
Yeah, I mean, a team like the Niners is the only team that I think makes sense, right? They're going to have low first-round picks. I know they just got Trey Lance. I don't know. I mean, if it hasn't happened already, it's probably not, right?
So a team I thought of was, everyone was talking about Washington. I don't think Washington's going to end up doing it. They just signed Jacoby Brissett, so I think that they're content with Jacoby Brissett. I thought about the Tennessee Titans because the Titans are kind of in a win now mode. They're not going to win with Ryan Tannehill, and we saw enough that Malik Willis isn't going to be the answer. They had to actually sign Josh Dobbs, who has been in the league for like 6 or 7 years and never started, just to start a game at the end of the season for them. So I could see a team like the Titans knowing that they only have a few more years left of Derrick Henry in his prime. They still have a decent receiving core. They have that one rookie from last year that's pretty good. I'm blanking on his name. But I could see the Titans going for a Lamar Jackson. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's a great call. That actually makes a lot of sense too. That would put the Titans back into, the Titans were like what, 14-2 a couple years ago.
Yeah, they were 2 years ago. They were the number 1 seed.
Crazy. That makes a ton of sense. Lamar would fit well with their crazy run game and Derrick Henry. That would be like an unstoppable attack if the Titans got Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let's get into some rapid questions. So I brought up at the beginning of the episode, Jalen Ramsey. Was this a better trade for the Rams or for the Dolphins?
You know, you know, this one's interesting because we saw some other cornerbacks who they didn't get anywhere near as much, right? Darius Slay, it sounds like he's actually going to stay with the Eagles. I think there was another high value cornerback who was traded for a fifth round pick. So I want to say the Rams got a pretty good deal here. I mean, I do think in overall, it's kind of a deal that makes sense for both sides. I don't really see a clear winner, but I think if you're going to pick a winner, it's the Dolphins because they are stacked. They had a
Yeah.
pretty good defense last year, or maybe not so great, but now they're getting the best cornerback in the NFL.
Well, their defense was their weak point last year, and they did trade for Bradley Chubb at the deadline, so that helped them a little bit, but they did need help in the secondary. I know Byron, what's his name? Was it Byron Murphy? No, he's with the Cardinals. Well, one of their cornerbacks was injured, like Byron Murphy was with the Cardinals. One of the Miami Dolphins, not Xavier Howard, but their secondary was always injured. So I do think Jalen Ramsey, talent-wise, obviously makes him a ton better. However, he's been known to be a cancer in the locker room. So that kind of worries me, especially when you have personalities like Tyreek Hill in there too. Does that worry you at all?
Yeah, actually, now that you're saying it, it does. Because Tyreek Hill is like he's not he's going to speak his mind and he's going to call people out and he's going to shenanigan his way into debacles. What really worries me is Tua, right? I mean, they have all the talent in the world, and if they don't have a quarterback, it doesn't mean anything. I think that their biggest thing is they need to sign a good backup, right? They should have signed Jacoby Brissett. They cannot play another season with Teddy Bridgewater. I mean, I love that guy, but please get out of the NFL.
I think they
I
should
want
sign Gardner Minshew. I think that would be a really good backup for them.
someone like that, but just Teddy Bridgewater, please do what RG3 did, right? I mean, you're such an amazing guy. Everyone loves you. The last thing people want to see is you not be able to get up again. I mean, it's just ridiculous to me. And same thing with Tua. Like, if Tua gets a concussion in the first 5 weeks of the season, it's just gonna be ridiculous. Like, there was so much chaos last year because of it. I mean, that's not stuff that goes away, right? When people start getting concussions, they don't stop. And my worry with the Dolphins is that they're going to have the same situation they had last year, and then 2 more years of this. I mean, Tua's got to be done. But if he gets 2 more concussions this year, he's done. He just is.
No, you're right. You're right. All right. What about, I brought them up when we were talking about the Broncos, but Leonard Fournette, where do you think would be a good landing spot for him?
I don't think Leonard Fournette is going to be a focus of any offense this year. Actually,
I agree.
I think it's one of those things where running backs have a ticking clock, and last year his alarm went off, and Leonard Fournette might not get signed. All right, he's a big guy. He's had a lot of injuries. He's going to command a veteran minimum, which is more so than you'd pay a rookie. A rookie's going to have fresher legs. I'm saying Leonard Fournette starts the season without a team.
I mean, I think the Denver Broncos are a good pick for him. What about the Rams, though? Because they're not sold on Cam Akers. So let's go with Leonard Fournette or Ezekiel Elliott. Do you think either of those two guys would be a good fit on the Rams?
I do. And actually, when you asked that question, the first team that popped in my head was the Rams.
Yeah.
I think Zeke makes a little more sense. I think Zeke's a little bit better. But either way, so which one of those two is older? Weren't they drafted in back-to-back seasons?
I think so. Fournette's older, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
I don't know. I would take Zeke over Fournette, but both are not a bad idea. A $2-3 million a year contract doesn't hurt. I think he adds veteran presence. I think he adds consistency, and that's what they don't have in Cam Akers. So, I mean, if one of those two does go to the Rams.
Yeah, Zeke is 1 year. I said Zeke is 1 year younger than him. So
if either of those go to the Rams, I would actually take them and give them a flyer shot in fantasy because you don't know what's going to happen with Akers. And if they need consistency, they're going to go with either of those two.
All right, 2 more questions for you. Pretty much the guy that went number 1 overall most in drafts last year was Jonathan Taylor. To say he was a disappointment would be an understatement. Where are you ranking Jonathan Taylor heading into this year fantasy-wise?
Wow. What is the Colts quarterback situation?
They released Matt Ryan, so they have the 4th overall pick. So they're not going to get Stroud or Bryce Young, but they could get Anthony Richardson from Florida or Will Levis from Kentucky. So it's probably going to be a rookie.
Yeah. So I put him probably end of the second round, early third. Sounds about right to me. Thinking of a guy who's comparable is a guy like DeAndre Swift, maybe
Okay.
somewhere in that range, right? It's a big mystery, but someone, a guy who I will take above both of them is the Panthers' new running back from the Eagles.
Miles
I think
Sanders.
I think he's gonna have a big
I
season.
think he's going to have a good year too. I agree with you there.
Yeah.
All right, last question, and it's the big one. Okay, it's August. You're on your fantasy draft. You get the number 1 pick. You're on the clock. Who are you drafting first?
Cooper Kupp.
You're gonna go with Cup.
Yep, without a doubt.
I don't know.
Not
I
even
gotta go
close.
with Justin Jefferson. I don't think that Cup coming back from an injury has me a little concerned. As well as Stafford coming back from an injury. So I would go with the safe bet and go with Justin Jefferson.
As long as Stafford is the quarterback and Kupp, Kupp had a high ankle sprain. I think he'll be fine. I think Stafford is the bigger question mark. But Justin Jefferson is great, but he didn't put up anywhere close to what Cooper Kupp put up 2 years ago. Cooper Kupp put up maybe the best wide receiver season ever in fantasy football. 16 touchdowns, 100 and whatever catches, almost 2,000 yards. In Stafford, you know what Stafford and Baker Mayfield are the opposite. Stafford has his number 1 guy, and that guy goes off, right? Cooper Kupp will have 11 catches a game. He'll have 120 yards a game, and he will catch touchdowns. I don't care if the Rams suck. Even if they do suck, they're going to throw the shit out of the ball to Cooper Kupp. That is their offense. You cannot ignore that. So many people are going to underdraft Cooper Kupp. If I have the number 1 pick, it is clear as day to me who I'm taking.
Okay, let's say like the top 3 wide receivers off the board. You got Diggs is off the board, Jefferson's off the board. Let's still go for it. Chase is off the board and Kupp's off the board. Who's the first running back you're drafting?
I think it's got to be Christian McCaffrey, but I got to say Breece Hall is a close second.
I would still take Christian McCaffrey. I think he had a great comeback year. I actually would fade Josh Jacobs this year. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think it is. I think Josh Jacobs, the uncertainty is what's keeping him out of my pick. But, whoever the Raiders just signed from San Francisco, he bodes well for Josh Jacobs' success.
Mm-hmm.
If he stays a Raider, Josh Jacobs, I think he has a good year. Yeah, Garoppolo.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also think you can't sleep on Saquon, especially if Saquon's going to be playing on the franchise tag. He's going to have a lot to prove because he wants that big contract. All right, well, that is our episode for today. Jacob, this was a lot of fun. I know I missed talking fantasy football, so I'm already getting all giddy and excited for football season.
Me too.
All right, we'll be back next week. Thanks, everyone.